Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Leading from Alignment with our good friend, coach, and mentor, teacher, professor, Gilligan, skipper, the whole island of characters, John Opalewski. How are you today, John?
Oh, Jim, I'm good. That might be the best intro you've ever given me.
Yeah, I had some time off. Can you tell? I got some rest. So,
Yes.
I am thrilled because this is episode 149. And we are getting back to 149, 150. We're really getting back to the roots of what Converge does best. And so why don't you introduce to us some of the topics that we're going to be talking about here this week and again next week?
Yeah, Jim, I as we get to 149 and 150, these episodes, and really celebrating that with you.
Yeah.
You've been with me the whole way. It only makes sense to focus on our core to me. And more than anything else, I think we do a lot of things well, but I think more than anything else, this podcast is about the personal health of a leader.
Yes.
We believe that as the leader goes, normally, so goes the organization they lead. And so I'd like to talk about four behaviors of healthy leaders. And this is an observational series of pods, Jim. These are things that I've observed in leaders who have maintained good health over a long period of time.
Right.
And if I'm anything, I'm observant. I have the ability to watch what's going on and make observations. And so that's what I'd like us to talk about today.
Right on. I love that thought of longevity. Success is not what I've accomplished today. It's a body of work over a lifetime, over a career. So that I'm all ears. Lead me on.
All right. So the word health is an interesting word. It gets tossed around quite a bit regarding leaders and pastors, and so much that I thought I should ask some pastors what they think the word health means. What does it look like for a pastor? And so I reached out to a few good friends who I trust would give me a straight answer, and asked for their definition. And Jim, I'd like you to hear some of their responses.
Yeah,
I'm just going to read these real quick. One said the ability to breathe in and out. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. Fortunately, he went on to say this. Many pastors know only how to breathe out.
Right.
And that's why they end up collapsing, just like we would all do if we only physically breathed out. And I thought, I like that. What do you think about that one?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. You cannot give away what you don't have. And I can be a carpenter and build a house and fake my emotional health, but I can't be a pastor or a teacher or a police officer. I mean, there's certain jobs that your heart has to be healthy and engaged, or you're really bad at it, or it's really bad for you. And ministry will be at the top of that list to fake empathy or enthusiasm. That's what Jesus, the Hippocrates, or the word hypocrite, it means to be an actor. And if you don't breathe in and breathe out in balance, then you are acting, behaving as if you are a healthy person when you're not. I agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, and I think that catches up with us at some point. At some point, that lack of breathing in, that lack of the internal health and internal work catches up to us. Most of the time, I believe pastors get into trouble, not because of organizational issues, although sometimes that's the case. I think more often than not, and I'd be interested in what you think about this, Jim, it's something that's on the inside that's not being addressed, something that's being ignored, neglected, and it catches up to the individual leader at some given point in time.
Absolutely. Yeah. What's funny is sometimes the only way to know what those issues might be, or those weaknesses, or those past traumas or pains or whatever is pain. So, pain tells us something's wrong, tells us where it's located so we can do something about it. And I learned to walk that way. Everybody's listening, everybody's watching did. We leaned this way until we fell. And then we realized that's leaning too far. Then we leaned this way too far and we fell. And so I think that, again, back to the thought of health, a healthy person, it's not that they don't fall, but they respond by correcting what caused them to fall. That's a healthy response versus falling and falling and falling and then making up for it. And Yeah, making excuses for it. That's an unhealthy response.
Yeah, and I like that thought, that health isn't like I've arrived, I've reached the end zone of health. It's an
Nope.
ongoing journey. It's an ongoing quest for well-being, and there are bumps and bruises and detours along the way. And the guys that really hang in there are the guys that address, right? They make the proper adjustments. So I like that. I thought that was a great definition. Here's a couple more real quick. Another pastor said this: living in a way that promotes positive growth and functionality. I kind of like that one. This one was my favorite answer, although it really didn't answer the question. He said, not certain how I would define it, but I know it when I see and experience it.
Yes.
And
yeah.
So I'd like to put some definition around these behaviors today, Jim. I want to start by issuing a disclaimer. You and I don't have all the answers about what pastoral health looks like. We know a few things. We know a few. And so here are 4 behaviors that we've observed in pastors who've maintained this good level of health over a long period of time. And we're going to cover the first 2 in episode 149 here. And then we'll jump on the next 2 in episode 150. So here's the first one. Healthy pastors possess a vibrant walk with God. And I can envision our listeners and hearers responding, well, duh. John, don't you got anything better than that or anything? And you know what? I don't.
Well, but yeah, right. But press into that question. And okay, it's easy to define. Of course, we all know that. But how many of us, if we were to look at our calendars, if we were to look at our checkbooks, if we were to speak to our families, they would say the number one thing about my spouse, the number one thing about my pastor, the number one thing about our budget, our calendar, our life. Well, duh, but true or false, most of the people we know in ministry, including ourselves, have had long seasons where if we were accused of loving God in a court of law, we would have been found innocent. There was no way that we were guilty of that, right?
Yeah, and so the way I think about it is this is something intellectually I think everybody who's listening can say yes, like of course too.
Yeah.
But there's a big difference between knowing and doing.
Yes.
A big difference. And the guys and gals who stay healthy remember why they signed up for pastoring in the first place. And it's simple: love for God, appreciation of the amazing redemptive work that he did in their lives. I think most pastors sign up because they've received so much from God and want to give back. Now, there may be a few who sign up for devious reasons.
Sure.
I don't know that I've met one yet. Maybe I have in all these years, maybe 1 or 2, but thousands of them that I know that, man, they signed up because they love Jesus. And Jim, this phenomenon is cross-denominational.
Sure.
In every denomination where we have clients, these guys, God did something amazing in their life. And that was one of the reasons, that was one of the drivers of them signing up for leading. But you know this very well, and I know it as well, but it's a little more in my distant memory, that the machinery of pastoral ministry has this uncanny capacity, right, to chip away at a pastor's love relationship with Jesus. Sermon prep, the unrelenting needs of people, cultural issues, which I've never seen the variety and depth and strain of that, and what begins to happen week by week, there is this fading, or can be this fading, of spiritual vibrancy. What do you think about this first one, Jim?
Well, everything you just said lines completely up with a group of teachers that came to Jesus and said, what's the most important thing we can do? what's the number one thing in priority? What's the number one thing on the list of things to do? And he goes, love God, heart, soul, mind, strength, depending on which version, it's translated from Greek or Aramaic or original Hebrew. And that is the totality of all that we are. The first and most important thing that a branch can do is to be grafted into the vine that has all the life in it. The most important thing we can do. And God's not insecure, and he's not an egotist, and he's not, some insecure king. He is somebody, like, he would only tell us what is best. So when God says the best thing for you, for longevity, for prosperity, for health, for family, the number one thing, so the megas, the most important, and the primos, the first, those are two completely different categories. The weightiest, the most powerful, and the first thing you should do is love me. So I think everything that we have to give comes out of the first thing, where we actually do some receiving. We become like him because we spend time with him. We receive things in those interactions that become what Paul calls fruit of the Spirit. Well, fruit's not for the tree, fruit's for the hungry people that pass by it. It's for the seeds that will be planted that create orchards of fruit. And it is undeniably the priority. The first thing and the most important thing we will ever do is what Jesus taught us to do, and that's love God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength.
Yeah, and healthy leaders rarely forget that. They rarely forget why they do what they do. They might forget once in a while, but they hardly ever forget that. And so they prioritize and feed that relationship. They've established this rock solid rhythm of alone time with God, and nothing seems to move them off of that, Jim. It's just, no matter what's going on in their world, they have figured that out. They've developed this wonderful rhythm of alone time and loving the Lord and letting God do work on the inside of them. And so if you want longevity, if you want to be healthy, it starts here with a vibrant
Everything
walk
starts here
with God.
I mean, this is for your marriage. This is for your children and grandchildren. This is for your ministry. This is recovery from addictions. This is finding the superior pleasures of intimacy with your Creator as the foundation for the fruit of your life. And we all know, if it's something else, those something else is all come and go. This is the one thing that will never leave you, never forsake you. This is the one place that will never run dry. This is the one thing that will sustain you from youth and enthusiasm through old age and death. This is because we've seen it, right? We've seen David go from a kid to a king to an old man. What was the one thing that kept him moving forward? We've seen the life of Jesus and how he would rather be with his Father than sleep. He'd rather be with his Father than eat. Those who have patterned for us in Scripture and history that have finished their race well, all talk about it's the love of Christ. I agree 100%.
So if you're a leader listening or watching today, the most important appointment you have today is with Jesus. The most important appointment you have tomorrow, this week, next week, is with him. That is the most important thing you will do every day. And we want to imprint that on you, because we know how important it is for you, even outside of ministry, Jim.
Please.
This is the most important piece of your life, no matter what you're doing for God. So that's the first one. Here's one more.
Can I say one more thing?
Oh, please.
Because I think sometimes people are like, okay, I don't have time to sit there for 2 hours and pray. And if I did have time, I couldn't pray for 2 hours. And that's not what we're talking about.
That's right.
I think of the love of God. I don't often look at my glasses, right? But I look through my glasses. And because I look through my glasses, I see things clearly because I'm looking through them. I think this is a good example of the love of God, that when I am loving the Lord, that my glasses are in the right place, they're in the right focus. So people aren't my problem, and they're not my enemy, and they're not my tormentors. They're what I was sent by God to minister to love. That I can't get that unless I'm looking through God's love for me and receiving it in a healthy way, becoming loved. I'm not working for his approval. I'm working from his approval.
Yeah.
I honestly, we dedicated the next 10 podcasts to this. We wouldn't exhaust this topic, but I would say it, how do I know if I'm loving God or not? Are you looking through his love to the reality of the kingdom around you? Or is this you look at it for an hour and say, there, I checked the box. You know what I mean? I take God fishing. I take God hunting. I wash the car with God.
So
I'm driving alone and I'm talking to God. I'm singing to God. And I'm not saying, so I'm perfect. I'm not saying that, but I understand the constraints of a very busy life, very tired soul. We all get that. So what do? Well, you take him to work with you. You take him to the office with you. You enjoy quiet moments. I'm married to someone I love more than myself. And we don't have 24 hours a day to focus on our marriage, but we do hold hands when we're too tired to talk.
Yeah.
I look through my love for her to find some expression, so I don't mean to belabor this, but I almost feel like in some ways we're talking to people that say, okay, what's next? Like, no, stop. There is nothing next. This is first. And it doesn't matter what comes next. If you don't get this right, let's try loving people without receiving the love of God. You have nothing to give them.
That's right.
So I just beat on it, John. Just beat on it.
No, that's okay. And I think what you're really saying is this is foundational, right? I mean, if we don't work on this part of our world, the next three things we're going to talk about don't help as much.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
They're like building blocks that go on top of this first foundational behavior.
Yeah.
So no, you weren't belaboring it. We're really wanting to drive this point home. Here's the second healthy behavior that I've observed, you've observed in pastors who stay healthy over a long period of time. They actually plan and implement a solid mental and emotional well-being strategy. I mean, they're intentional about it.
Yes.
I've observed that healthy pastors practice effective emotional behaviors. And I'm going to give a list here, and Jim, feel free to jump in wherever you want.
Yeah.
But I'm just going to give you like 4 or 5, areas that they really do well. One, they demonstrate calendar control.
Yes.
They demonstrate calendar control. They have learned how to put hard edges on work, which is extremely difficult if you're a leader. One of the differences between leading a church and working in the assembly line, and I've never worked in the assembly line, but I've talked to a lot of people who do. They said, John, when I punch out, when I'm done, I am done. Like I'm just done.
Yeah.
And I don't think about work until like 5 minutes before I arrive the next morning. And a leader, it's not that simple, right? There's usually no clock to punch. And the demands, especially if you're leading a ministry, the demands of people seem to be nonstop. And so if you're waiting for people to be kind to you in the area of your calendar, you're going to be waiting for the rest of your life.
Never going to happen.
Healthy leaders demonstrate calendar control. Now, 100% control? No. Because you have a disruptive role, right? By nature, it's disruptive. However, don't allow the disruptive nature of your role to make you throw your hands up in despair and say, I can't put any edge around my work. Yes, you can.
Sure, you have to. Yeah,
so that's the first
you
one.
have to. Can I weigh in with an analogy?
Please,
real quick?
Yes. Yeah, please.
We're having 2 kids, and I asked my mom, is 25, 28 years ago, we're thinking about having a third. What do you think? She said, well, 3 kids is completely different than 2 kids. And I said, expound. And she said, well, two kids, you can play man to man. There's 2 of you, there's 2 of them. Somebody cries, there's an adult to take care of it. But when there's 3 kids, you have to play zone. It's no more man to man defense. It's zone. So it took her a long time to get used to the fact that at least 1, if not 2, are crying because their needs are not being met while she's meeting 1. And you have to be okay with that as a parent. Either you lose your mind, because I was number 4. She had to get good at it before I came along. So either you're good at the fact that there's a finite amount of you in what seems to be an infinite world of need, and you're okay with that. I'm here to do what I can do. I'm here to do it well. If somebody's right in front of me, they're my neighbor, and I'm going to care for their needs as best I can. But I cannot meet their needs if I don't care for my own needs. And I think of that when you say that. Having 3 kids. She said having 2 kids is like you're swimming and you're kind of drowning, but then a boat comes along and you look up in hope and they hand you a baby and sail away. That's what the 3rd kid feels like. Is here's a 3rd kid, now you're all going to die. So I think being okay with the fact that there's always going to be someone who's not okay is very important to your mental health.
Yeah. So in this emotional strategy, this mental and emotional game plan, so there's the calendar control piece. Making part of that is making time for exercise and hobbies and friendship. We talk a ton on the podcast about healthy work-rest rhythms, so we won't belabor that, other than to say that God has established rhythms from the beginning of time that he has demonstrated to us that are integral to longevity and health for a leader. Here's a couple more mental and emotional behaviors, game plan that I see in leaders that stay healthy, Jim, and that's they grow in their ability to express anger. Without
in healthy ways.
Without saying or doing something they'll later regret. They figured out how to be assertive as opposed to aggressive, or what most leaders do, most pastors do, is passive. Somebody does something they shouldn't do, says something they shouldn't say, doesn't follow through with the commitment they made, and any normal human being would feel some sort of emotion of anger. And many pastors say, I shouldn't feel that emotion. I'm going to push it down. I'm going to push it down. I'm going to push it down. Well, I've got news for you. There's only so much space that you can push down before you explode. And the explosion can be a very aggressive reaction to, you're giving $100 response to a $1 problem, or your health starts to suffer. You start having problems with anxiety or depression, or physical issues, because anger, the weird thing about anger is that it doesn't disappear on its own. You have to learn as a leader, I have to learn as a human being to direct that anger in the proper direction, or else it sits in the background just bubbling, and it's having an impact on me. Jim, what do you think about that?
Well, and you say, I wonder if I'm dealing with that. Ask your wife, ask your kids, ask your closest friends, because often we're mad at so-and-so, but we don't take it out on them. We take it out on the people that we are safe enough around to be frustrated with. So I heard somebody say years ago, there's no such thing as an unexpressed emotion. It will always find a way out. And so finding healthy ways, like you're talking about exercise. If I've started hundreds of runs, stressed out, angry at somebody, dealing with a difficult situation, but any run over 3 to 5 miles, I've never finished a 10-mile run and not have peace in my heart. I don't know what it is, but that purging of your soul through vigorous exercise, it's a good thing. I don't hit a punching bag. I don't picture deacons' faces while I'm kicking soccer balls. I don't, but just finding your happy place and letting it out, in the last mile and or the last hole of golf, or the last, tennis, the last lap of the pool, whatever. But finding that place, with God, with your body, soul, and spirit, to in a healthy way let it out. Now I'm prepared actually to go back to the person that frustrated me and deal with the problem, not with my explosive, overwhelming anger, but with the problem that actually exists that can now be solved, because they're facing a man of peace, not a man of war, that wants to defeat my enemy.
Right, and I want everybody to hear what you just said, because they could not have listened to those last 3 sentences and think, if I'm angry, all I got to do is go swim laps or go take a run. No. We're letting that be our relief valve, right? But we do have to come to that place of actually dealing with the issue or series of issues that are coming our way. And look, if you're a leader, there is going to be amazing opportunities for anger to emerge in your world.
We have an amazing opportunity for
That's
you.
right.
Yeah, absolutely true. Yeah,
And
absolutely
so,
true.
and so
Especially when you
learning
put your
how,
heart into it.
yeah, learning how to express it. Let me give you one more, and then I know we got to
Yeah,
wrap
yeah,
up.
yeah. Yeah.
And we're talking, this is the second behavioral area, is this intentional game plan for our mental and emotional well-being. Here's the last piece of that, and that is setting and enforcing appropriate relational boundaries.
Okay.
You know, and I think that kind of just is a little bit of a piggyback off what I just said. As a young pastor, Jim, I used to believe falsely that because I was a pastor, that people could say whatever they wanted to me.
Yeah.
People, whenever they wanted my time, I had to give it to them. I had to solve their problems.
Yeah.
You know, their marriage was jacked up for decades, and they thought I was going to come in and rescue that marriage. And
Yeah.
and as a young guy, Jim, I didn't know how to say no. I didn't know how to say, you know what, that's outside my lane. I didn't know how to say, you know what, I'm really exhausted.
Yeah.
Can we talk about this? Get with I actually had we called them secretaries back then. I don't even know if that's a bad word to say now, but
Yeah.
I had she was called a secretary back then, and I had her, I'd say get with her and she'll get you on my calendar, because in the moment I didn't have anything. I didn't have anything in the tank, right? I needed space. I needed a boundary. You know,
Yeah.
probably the worst time for most pastors, I would imagine, is on Sunday morning after you've just delivered your soul and somebody comes up and wants to complain about something. And I mean, you've just expended a tremendous amount of
Yeah.
energy. I would advise most of you who are listening to put some
Yeah.
space between, if you can deal with it, it's something minor, no big deal. But if
Yeah.
somebody's coming at you saying, you know what, I really have problems with you as our leader, I would suggest not dealing with that in that moment. You might need some boundary. You might need some space. Let me say
Yeah.
this. Just because you're a leader doesn't mean people have the right to say anything they want to you
Correct.
without you standing up and saying, you know what, I'm not going to let you talk to me like that.
Yeah.
I'd like to maybe, if this is true, say this. If it's not true, don't say it. But I'd like to have a relationship with you. I really would like to get to know you.
Yeah.
But if you're going to come at me like that, it's just not going to work. So
Yeah.
until you get that sorted out, go get that sorted out. Then we can talk. When you're feeling normal, you're less agitated, you're less attacking. Then let's sit
Yeah.
down and we'll have a reasonable talk about whatever it is that's bothering you.
Yeah. 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 I think, we have that Matthew chapter 18 series of confrontational environments, right?
Yeah.
Come to me reasonably, and let's try to don't beat me up because my first name's Pastor and the last three guys whose first name was Pastor hurt you, and you're
Right.
making me pay for the sins of my predecessors. Don't beat me up because I remind you of your father, and your father wasn't a good father. Now you're gonna your first three husbands had don't, you know what I'm saying? Like don't
Yeah.
just receive me for who I am. Let's try to work out our problems, right? In a peaceful way. But the goal is settling the issue. And if that doesn't work, let's find a neutral third party who can, and if that doesn't work, then we understand that one of us is in the wrong church. The problem is my first name's Pastor. So I'm not here because I choose to be. I'm here because obedience led me to where I am, and I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
So if you can't, I'm not saying so you get out of here, I'm the pastor and you're not. I hope I said that biblically enough and well enough that people understand that to have the three families in the back of the church with their arms folded, shaking their head no every time the pastor says something, that is not okay. And that has destroyed more young pastors or more small churches, or that has to be dealt with. It's cancerous. The body of Christ can have cancer, and that what I just described as a tumor undealt with.
And the good news is you can learn how to do that.
Yeah.
You can actually learn how to address those kind of scenarios. And the guys, the male and female leaders that I'm associated with, that are healthy and have stayed healthy for a long time have figured that out.
Yeah.
They have
Yes.
figured out
100%.
how to draw the
Yeah.
boundary.
Yeah.
And so, well, Jim, we've got more to talk about, but I think we'll have to punt and to pod 150.
Right on. Okay. Well, hey, again, this is the bread and butter. We do a lot of things. We help in a lot of different ways. The team of experts is growing, and so the menu of things we can do is expanding as well. But if someone were to say, what is conversion? What does it do? We would hope that you would say, well, they help us stay in this game healthy and longer and more enjoyable. We are about, not I would say exclusively, but I would say primarily helping you lead well, helping you lead in a way that brings you joy and satisfaction, not defeat and depression. So these, loving God and having this plan that John's talking about is vital. And if we can help you do this, go to the website. Maybe you do, maybe you don't know that there's 30 minutes free with one of us or a member of the team. I just want 30 minutes to deal with this issue. It doesn't cost you anything. If we can't help you in that 30 minutes, I bet you we know somebody who can. And if we can, then let's start a conversation. And if the problem's solved in 30 minutes, just live long, prosper, go get them, Tiger. But if we can help you in any way, that's what Converge is here to do. Our primary paycheck is not a financial thing. Our primary paycheck is when you as the leader succeed. And so God bless you. May this be wind in your sails. It is Tuesday and you haven't quit. Congratulations. Keep going. Take care of your soul. Take care of your family and continue to lead from alignment.